Welcome to the Warcraft news, everyone. You know things are getting serious when the game's head honcho drops an almost 3,000 word long article that's defending Blizzard's newfound courage. The courage to do bold and outright brash things, like, say, the changes they're making to leveling in Midnight, or how they're now building a new zone with a very peculiar name using only vanilla assets, and of course, everything with add-ons. And really, every week for the last while, Blizzard have done something to shake things up. This week is no different. It's full of surprises. Most are good, but not quite all of them. First, though, we need to talk about game director Ian Hazzikostas. This may be the single largest change an expansion has ever made to World of Warcraft. That is not a title of a video on our channel, though it may well be. No, those are Ian's own words from the article that he posted. And that does make sense. Midnight is bringing change unlike ever before. We've seen the fallout to the add-on apocalypse in real time, but now Ian has officially responded to things. So, what could possibly be worth all of this chaos? His answer is simple. It's that there has been a shift from add-ons that display information to add-ons that process information. Obviously, we have heard this before. We know guilds and pugs force people to download weak auras to solve mechanics. We know people play with Hikili or Plater because they can't really understand their class or react to things fast enough with the game as it's currently presented. But why does any of that stuff bother Ian? Because obviously, it's been in the game for a long time. And the answer he poses is actually simple. It's the feedback he gets. Whenever they design a boss that's too easy, players tell him it's not satisfying. Whenever they build a class around simple choices, they get the same complaint. But here's the thing. He knows that's because players are using add-ons to make it easier. Now, of course, they still need to make the game better for those players. So, over time, what Ian's team have done for years and years is just add more layers to the game. They've made it faster, they've made it more complex, but that's also left people who weren't using add-ons behind, meaning that WoW was less approachable, and meaning the design team can't make satisfying content because they're designing around automation tools rather than designing around the actual players. And that is why it's going to end now. In big, bold text, Ian states it plainly. Add-ons should no longer offer a competitive advantage in WoW combat. That's a humongous change, it's a solid guiding principle, and after years of reflection and thinking about this, I wholeheartedly agree with it. I think in a world where WoW's designers are in full control, the game is almost guaranteed to improve massively. I mean, the current discussion we have with add-ons that make the game easier is not really something that we see in many of the world's most popular video games. It ends up being quite a weird specific WoW thing. Those layers and layers of complexity and challenge often ended up being just to combat that people were using computational add-ons. I think that made the game's signal-to-noise ratio significantly worse, and it made WoW far less readable, which is a real huge problem if you actually want to, get new players into your game. Thinking about recent experience, I mean, Dementius is one of the best bosses in WoW's entire history, even without add-ons. Loads of my guild used none. I used none, other than console port to make my controller experiment feel a little bit better. So, I think Midnight has got insane promise, but that is easier said than done. And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking right now, that even if this goal is good, and many of us agree with it, well, the problem is the amount of chaos and what's going on in the community. And that is what Ian tries to address next. Right now, the community is aflame with people kind of outraged. We don't know what's going to be supported when it comes to add-ons. Purely cosmetic add-ons, which should be fine per Blizzard's guidelines, appear to be breaking. The damage meters that Blizzard have implemented don't seem to work on the beta, and major add-on devs have even thrown in the towel. Many posted about how it was almost impossible to get some basic functionality working on the early alpha builds because lots of the technical stuff had changed. People had no idea what to expect, and going beyond just the add-on devs, a lot of people were just a bit scared, a bit worried. And what we would really all need to see was Blizzard's version of these add-ons, because that would tell us what the game would actually look and feel like. So, there's been a lot of chaos, a lot of collateral damage, and that is what Ian then goes into. He carefully admits that their changes did cause a lot of that chaos. Now, many add-on devs posted about the extent of the breakage, a lot of this just being essentially APIs and stuff changing. But Ian can't really brazenly admit something like that in a post like this. So instead, what he did was publicly commit to customization as a goal that they are working towards. And in fairness, with recent changes on the beta, we do know that that's not just talk. There's now support for class resources like Holy Power. Damage meters are getting more details-like options. There's text-to-speech stuff, audio alerts. The accessibility features are coming in slowly, but thankfully they are actually coming in. But here's what makes this whole mess a little bit different. Ian admits that this chaos was actually a necessary part of their plan. That rather than cut functionality down bit by bit, they just decided to do it all at once and to burn everything to the ground. And that once alpha players would give feedback on what was missing, they would then know what to work on next. I suppose not based on what they think would be the right thing to work on, but based on actual player need communicated by players. And from that point, they would then start to rebuild things. So, rather ironically, all of this chaos was sort of part of the plan. But this does raise quite the question. And the question is this. It's a lot of change. Why now? Why seemingly rush things? I mean, expansions are rocky enough without this type of gigantic change layered on top. The good news is, Ian actually gave us an answer for that as well. Ian admits that he first started talking about add-ons last year to basically start the community conversation. And when he did, he found that on average, people did not want add-ons to be required, or to at least feel required. But naturally, they also didn't fully trust Blizzard to get things right. So they started investigating, basically thinking, what would it take to pull this off? And apparently, their UI engineers are a little bit cracked, and they ended up making way more progress than Blizzard themselves imagined. And that meant they all kind of realized something a bit astonishing. That they actually could do it in time for the Midnight expansion. That yes, it would be cutting things close, but that this was the type of change that you can only make with a new expansion. So they faced a choice. Either risk the UI changes not being fully ready, or keep the add-on heavy status quo until the last Titan. Obviously, they decided to pull the trigger, and that set off a chain reaction of changes across the game. Changes that have impacted classes, changes that have impacted dungeons, and massively so. Though, I'm happy to say, at least in our experience so far, they have mostly let their designers cook. And if you've watched our winners and losers video on melee DPS, you'll know that almost every spec comes into Midnight a bit more simple, but without losing what makes them unique and hard to master. Dungeons, at least in our limited testing, have also kind of went the same way. There's way less sensory overload, way less reading the UI. You're actually playing the game a hell of a lot more, which, well, I think should be the point of a game, actually. Shocking statement. Now, obviously, there still are some questions here. Will damage meters actually work well? How much more will be fixed during the beta? And will this actually revitalize WoW? Will it actually have that intended effect? Or will it just kind of piss off current players who have got to go and rebuild their UI? Well, Ian can't answer that, but he believes that it's worth the risk, and he promises here that they will do, quote, everything possible. And I, for one, actually believe him. I believe him personally, but there's also that if the player numbers go down and the money goes down, yeah, they very much will have to do everything possible to save their own skin. So you can say that at least their incentives do appear to be aligned. Now, I think Midnight is definitely not going to launch perfectly. It's an expansion launch and one with a shitload of change, so I think it will be a little bit rocky. But I do prefer a WoW that is bold, that is brave, and that is actually trying to solve problems fundamentally, instead of one that is just afraid to rock the boat. And speaking of rocking the boat, there is another bold move, and it's one that may upset some people. Dungeons are going to work a little differently in Midnight, and it's been rather controversial. So, in the War Within, you may remember how the Rookery was part of the main story. You went in with your followers in order to recruit the Storm Riders. Basically, they would be the last line of defense for Khazalgar. And of course, by going into the dungeon, you firsthand got to see it all go wrong. Zaltat's corruption became apparent as you then had to go and kill them all, which obviously led Khazalgar a little bit defenseless, Belgar both furious and feeling betrayed, which then led to his big character moment a few quests later. And honestly, it was absolutely fantastic. I thought, wow, this is a dungeon being integrated into the story in a good way that's reminiscent of FF14, which absolutely nailed that in loads of cases. It was good stuff. But all of the other dungeons, well, they were basically just little random side quests. This time, though, things are different. 4 dungeons are tied to the core campaign, and the other 4 are tied to their own quest lines. Basically, Blizzard wants you to experience the dungeons for their stories, so you'll actually understand them in context, almost as if you are playing an MMORPG. The main point being that the dungeons shouldn't just be weird, confusing standalone things. And honestly, I think that will be way better for the majority of people in the game. But there is a little bit of a cost for that vision, and this is the bit that a lot of people won't like, though I think Blizzard are doing a lot to hedge against that. So on your first character, you are going to be locked, and not just by level anymore. Now, we're not back to full Burning Crusade style achievement quest lines, but yes, every dungeon in Midnight now unlocks via quests. Some of these are part of the main story, like Magister's Terrace. You'll hit this at the start of the Voidstorm questing, which is the final zone that you'll go to after you've cleared the other 3. Now, if you're trying to level without doing the story, then you'll have to skip this one. It unlocks at 90, and so do 2 others. And unless you do the main story or the side quests, you'll only unlock 1 dungeon at level 81, 1 at level 83, and that will be it until level 88. This does mean the dungeon leveling is basically dead, at least for your first character. I mean, you can still do it, but you'll just be spamming Windrunner Spire and then Murder Row, which sounds absolutely insane. Of course, speed levelers have historically relied on dungeon spam. A lot of that's just because instances are usually a safe way to get around server issues, and this does seem like a fairly horrible way of playing the game, with there being so few dungeons available in that way. But here's the thing. We've played these dungeons, and we know exactly why Blizzard are doing this. It's because with follower dungeons now working, this is actually a brilliant way to put proper bosses in the story. It's actually good, and it now means there will be meaningful and memorable fights instead of just world NPCs getting blitzed by a dozen people. Sadly though, there is the obvious downside, where if you're a returning player who prefers dungeon spam with your friends, just like the good old days, well, you'll have to get to level 81 first, you'll have to get used to Windrunner Spire a lot. And that may not be that fun. But that said, there is another point to Blizzard's change here. You have to do the story anyway to unlock the game's endgame features, and this does fix a potential problem that some people may face, where they would spam dungeons until they hit max level, and then just realize that they've got to go and do all of those quests anyway, which absolutely feels bad whenever those quests aren't giving your character experience. So, all in all, I think this is basically great. It means there's more story in the dungeons, it means there's more dungeons in the story, and that means that the story can actually have these moments of spectacle where it feels big, where it doesn't just feel like another quest. That's really important for the pacing of the game, and it's important for actually making the story memorable. And I should also note that the unlocks here are going to be warband wide, so basically this is not really going to be a problem beyond week 1. So in my view, it is a clear win all round, and speaking of going all round, we have went all round the beta. There's a lot to talk about. The beta is live, and that means there's a whole lot going on. Have you ever wanted a golden trophy of a boss for your house? We're not going to full on spoil you here, so we'll only show you one from the one boss raid. Here it is, it's pretty cool. But rest assured, each of the 3 end bosses have got their own beautiful golden statue. Though gold is, of course, the best, and these rewards are for the cutting edge achievements. Those are, the mythic raiding ones. Not everyone will really be able to do that. Yes, maybe because of difficulty, but also just for organizational reasons, so I sincerely hope Blizzard adds a silver, at least, for the much more attainable ahead of the curve. Though to be honest, it would feel a little bit shit if, say, Heroic got silver, if Normal got bronze, and if LFR got wood. Though it would be really funny. Anyway, statues, they'll be a thing for going and killing the boss. Though that's not it for cosmetics, because we've just got something people have been waiting on for a long, long time, and that is actual, honest-to-God, real Night Elf weaponry. Basic Night Elf weapons that anyone can use, and yes, that does include proper glaives, and thankfully, they are glaives that are tagged as swords, and they're also one-handed swords, meaning that even Fury Warriors can use them. And no, that's not a joke at your expense, Warriors, rather your transmog dreams have finally came true here. It doesn't work in beta just yet, but at least the UI finally supports it. So at long last, Fury Warriors can transmog two-handed weapons to one-handers. Absolutely good. It only took a lot of asking over many years. Healers, though, are also getting what they've asked for, and that is a clearer UI. Now, while these raid frame changes are not in yet, what we do have is icon borders. They've been data mined, and really, I think they're pretty good. Now, you could already tell what type a debuff was, technically, but that was by squinting at the 1-pixel border color. Now, with these, at a glance, you'll know what's a bleed, a curse, or a disease, or whatever else you need. I think they look pretty good and visually clear. Now, the last group to benefit are everyone's favorite, the solo player sickos. If you love the challenge of the Delve Nemesis hard modes, then there is real good news. The Hall of Fame for Delves is now 10 times larger, meaning that the first 10,000 players to successfully kill the boss will get the fabled Vanquisher title, which is, yeah, pretty good. And it actually does prove that you're actually good at the game and not just carried by someone. Unless, of course, you're playing an easy spec, like the old Demon Hunter, because even they can get carried by that. And now our last bit of news. World of Warcraft can now finally, legally, drink alcohol in the US. The game's 21 years old, and that does actually mean the anniversary is back, but not the usual anniversary with just a bit of an XP buff. Essentially, the whole 20th anniversary shindig is back, and that does include the updated Blackrock Depths raid, though seemingly only in heroic mode. The big thing this means, though, is that you can get any of the updated Tier 2 sets that you may have missed from last year, plus a very long list of other rewards. And just like last year, you get a 10% XP buff for logging in, and then a bonus 10% for going to the Caverns of Time and doing the daily quest that Yelana gives you. And if you want another quest to do today, then you should find out who's winning and who is losing in Midnight by listening to our 40-minute long, but we've done a lot to make sure it's actually not dry and it's really fun to listen to, our big rundown of how every melee DPS spec currently feels on the beta. Watch that video next.